Alrighty, gang. Here's to nights that turn into mornings and friends that turn into family. Cheers!
Hello. Welcome to the Friendship IRL podcast. I'm your host, Alex Alexander, and each week we explore what's working and what's not in our friendships, community, and connections. Have you ever wished you could sit down and have a conversation about what is really going on in your friendships? Well, you found your people. Join us as we dive into real-life stories and explore new ways to approach these connections. Together, we're reimagining the rules of friendship. I was chatting with someone on my team the other day, and she was telling me, just so sweet of her, that she was listening to one of my episodes. She was listening to episode 149, Why We Should All Want Our Friends to Have Robust Social Lives, Even If It's Without Us. She was telling me about how she was listening to this episode, and she's like, yeah, it is so great that you want your friends to have other friends, and I love that idea. Like, it sounds like the dream, but I really don't know how you go from where I am now, where that's not really acceptable in our friendships to brag about how we hung out with someone else. Like, there's some jealousy under there, to what you describe in that episode. It just seems like it would be so hard to get there. And it feels like we'd really rock the boat, basically, is what she was telling me. That there'd be conflict, it would be uncomfortable, that she just couldn't imagine a little bit, like, the journey to get there and how they would navigate that and still stay friends. Now, of course, I kind of did what I tend to do if you've ever talked to me one-on-one about this stuff. People say I have a very distinct, look when I go into kind of this friendship mode, and I'm really clicking all the pieces together in my head and thinking through what you said. I really go into a work vibe, okay? I drop into that space and I'm thinking about it. And I'm analyzing what she said to me. And my first response was like, hey, if my episodes make it sound like every friend transition I have is seamless, then I really messed up here. My apologies to you, seriously, because these transitions are not seamless at all. There are definitely hurt feelings sometimes. There are definitely frustrations. Sometimes there are fights. Sometimes there are periods where two friends really aren't talking to each other until a bigger conversation happens. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Now, this isn't all the time. That's why I think I don't push it. It's not like we're having blow up fights, but there are definitely times where I show up to a friend hangout and I can tell that some sort of shift happened, right? And somebody has some thoughts about it. Maybe they've been staying up a little too late at night thinking, ruminating on whatever this shift was, and they have something they want to say. And it's like, okay, we got to say it. Tell it to me, What is your frustration? What do you not think is right? How are you feeling? Maybe you agree that we need to make this shift in our friendship, but you still don't like how it feels. You're dealing with maybe some jealousy, or it's giving you a hit of your self-worth. You feel like you're not a good friend. I don't know what it is, okay? Could be anything. And it's like we talk about it. We have a civil conversation. Normally it's just a piece of our hangout. Like, if I think back to the last one of these I had, I was out shopping with a friend. We were wandering through a store. We had spent, over an hour just having a normal hangout. I could tell she really wanted to talk about something. I asked her what it was and said I was open to hearing anything. She gave her perspective. We probably talked about it for 20-ish minutes. Just as we're wandering the aisles, we're having hey, this is how I feel. This is how you feel. And then we were like, okay, let's check back in on how we feel about this the next time, where we probably checked in for 5 minutes the next time we hung out. Then we checked in again the next time. I'll try and pay more attention to it for you. But the point of this is that if I have made it sound like all these transitions, all these changes in friendship culture are seamless and there's no conflict, that's not true. But it's also not these big fights all the time. Now, when I kept thinking about what my teammate said about how do we get from here to there, again, I'm dropping into work mode. I'm sitting here listening to her, and all I can hear is like, is the point of friendship? Do we all think that the point of friendship, the North Star of our friendships, is that they always feel good? Is that what makes a quote unquote good friendship? That they always feel positive and uplifting, and that we never push them, right? We want like this natural, easy change to happen. And so that's what today's episode is about. This is kind of one of those episodes that has my unfinalized thoughts. I'm just thinking through this. I would love your feedback, because in today's episode, we're going to challenge the assumption that we should always have friendships that feel good. And when I dig into that, we're going to talk about the work that you're actually doing when you're not doing the work of like confronting your friend. Here we go. Let's see if I can flesh this out in today's episode. So I think that there's this unspoken rule that a lot of us have. Somewhere along the way, we started to believe that a good friendship, a true friend, a real friend, right, is one that always feels good. That transitions, changes in our friendship culture, growth, should always be seamless. Conversation should be easy. No one should ever be upset. That's what I mean by feel good. Easy transitions, easy conversations. No one should be upset. And I think that for a lot of us, that has become the filter for our interactions. When I was listening to my teammate talk, she's like, to get from this place where we have some jealousy about hanging out with other friends to what you're talking about, where it's okay to even just say like, hey, I hung out with one of our closest friends without you last night. It just feels like I don't know how we get there without a bunch of conflict. And I said, well, there probably will be some conflict. It doesn't need to be these big blow up fights, but there will probably be some conversations you have to navigate. And if our filter is that we never want to have those conversations, that's going to make it really hard to shift anything in our friendship, in my opinion. Tell me otherwise. Like, reach out if you're like, it's always seamless, it's always easy, no one's ever upset, and we've shifted all these things. Tell me how. I want to hear it. And the more I dig into this, the more I think about it, I think there's something specific to friendship here, because I don't think we apply the standard to romantic relationships or familial relationships. In romantic relationships, there's almost this badge of honor when you talk about doing the work, right? It's very common. I like to think of just kind of the colloquial phrases we use when we talk about different relationships. If I'm talking about my relationship with my husband, with somebody, it's very common to be like, yeah, we've been together 16 years next week, which is true. And it's had its ups and downs. We've had periods where we're the most in love we've ever been, and periods where we feel like roommates, and hard periods and really great moments of our relationship. But through it all, we have like worked so hard with each new version of ourselves. If I told you that, you would celebrate me. Probably. You'd probably be like, yeah, that's how our relationship should be. Now, with family, when we think about how we talk about family, which we all know I have some feelings about, but I'm going to put those aside for this episode. A lot of us will accept like it's complicated and sometimes it's hard, but it's worth it. So again, it is very openly acceptable to know that there are probably going to be some rough patches. You're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to navigate some sticky conversations. But with friendship, if it's not fun, if it's not seamless, if it's not positive, then why bother almost? This isn't the first time I brought up this idea that I think we have scarcity around our friendships. And again, you can find this in the language we are using every day, right? Friendships are like four-leaf clovers. They're hard to find. Making new friends is impossible as an adult. It's the hunt of a lifetime to find a true friend. When you find them, hold on tight. These are phrases that you just hear. They're pinned all over Pinterest. They're going viral all over Instagram. People just throw them out, right? If I was in a conversation with you and I told you that I was struggling with my oldest friend, my friend I've had since I was 5, somebody might turn around and say this to me, right? Like, well, that friend, that's a real friend. So you should work really, really hard to hold on tight. But if I just tell you about a friend I met at yoga a year ago, a month ago, somebody might be like, well, I don't know. What would they say? I actually don't know. Are people telling me it's tight, like to hold on tight? I actually think in that case, somebody's probably telling me, oh, well, if they don't fit into your life like that, then I would just let them go. What is the switch? At what point is it worth it to do the work? I don't know. You tell me. Why? Why is it like that? I do think some of this comes from this kind of Western culture, individualistic lens versus more communal societies. And I don't have episodes specifically about this, but gosh, my episode with James Richardson, I want to say it's episode like 101. That might not be right. I will link it in the show notes. And my episode with Minachi, 153, both have some touches where they talk about a more communal society. So maybe there's some of that here. The scarcity problem isn't as prevalent in more communal societies. That seems like it would make sense. But at the end of the day, the point here is that I think that there's this underlying fear we have that if we rock the boat, our friends will walk away. The joy of friendship is that we choose to be friends actively all the time, and that the other person will just decide they don't want to choose anymore because it's not worth the work. Maybe this is because we're so overbooked, over-resourced. We just don't have capacity. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's because there's no guarantee. And I say that in kind of air quotes. There's no guarantee like a marriage license or that like blood relationship. These people are on your birth certificate type thing. At the end of the day, I think the question we need to sit with is, if the North Star shouldn't always be that our friendships always feel good, feel easy, seamless, then what should our North Star be? Which brings me to, I guess, my next section here, which is the work we're already doing. I broke this down. I think that there are 3 types of work we're doing here if we're trying to make our friendships feel good, right? The first one is we are suppressing our urges. I could give you all sorts of examples, but I'm just going to continue along with this idea of your friends having friends other than you, or maybe like if you're in a trio of friends, hanging out with somebody else in the trio without you, because that relates to my example in the beginning of my teammate talking about episode 149. So I'm just going to continue along with that example to keep it all congruent in this episode. So option 1 would be suppressing your urges. So let's say that you want to expand your social circle for whatever reason. Maybe your friend had a life change. They have been feeling really sick. They have really bad migraines and they're not able to go out and do as many things as you want to do. You're still supporting them. You're still checking in on them. You're still going over to their house, but you have things you want to do. You want to join some clubs. You want to get out of your house more on weeknights, right? You want to expand your social circle, but you're worried that if you do that, they will be jealous or upset, or they'll feel like you're leaving them behind or whatever it is. So you suppress your urge and you don't do it. You just stay at home, watch more Netflix, get really into basket weaving, whatever it is. You pick up a hobby that you can do on your own at home. You hold yourself back from joining that group, going to that event. You make yourself smaller to keep the peace. And I would argue that that is work, right? Suppressing your urge to go out and expand your social circle, it's work. It's work to sit there and know that you are drawn towards maybe some community events, or a speed dating event sounds really fun to you. Like a speed friending event. That's what I meant, which I have an episode about that. We'll link that in the show notes too, if that's something you're interested in. But you don't do it. You do all this work, right? You look at all these, I could sew, I could crochet, I could basket weave, I could get really into sourdough, I could rebuild car engines. And none of them really like sit right because it's not what you want to do. But you just keep forcing yourself to find a singular hobby because you don't want to upset your friend. That's work, okay? Option 2 is to hide and calculate. So let's say that you decide to go to the speed friending event. And when you go on your third time, you meet a couple people you really hit it off with. So you invite them over to your house for a game night. Maybe that seems a little aggressive. So you meet up with them at a local board game shop where you can play board games. You have a great time. You really enjoyed getting out of the house on a weeknight. It was fun to meet new people. You found out that one of them also has an interest in basket weaving. You're going to go take a class together. But when you're talking to your friend, the one who is at home trying to figure out how to navigate this new migraine diagnosis, you lie about where you were the night before. Or maybe you don't lie, but you just kind of omit it. And she's like, "How's your week?" You talk about everything else but what you did last night. And she never really asked specifically what you did because she figured you just stayed at home. So you just omit it. And then you have to start calculating because maybe you get together again for board games, or you go to a walk, or you go to that basket weaving class. And you're thinking like, can I share that I went to the basket weaving class? Will they be jealous? Do I tell them that I went to the class, but not that I went with this person? You don't mention something. And you basically start to build this entire part of your life that you don't feel like you can share with your friend. And that is also work, right? It is work to calculate what you can and cannot share. It is work to try and make sure you're going places where they won't run into you, or they won't hear about the fact that you were there. Option 3 is to navigate the changing culture in your friendship. Now, this might look like having kind of a hard conversation with your friend, and it doesn't need to be this big blow up thing. It could just be telling your friend like, "Hey, here's how I would have that conversation." Ready? I'd be like, "Hey, I know that you're really, really struggling with these migraines, and I feel awful for you, and I want to help you however I can. And I'm happy to come up with some ways that we can still stay really connected, right? Is it easier for me to text? Is it easier to voice memo? Is it better if I come over and sit in your house? If they're having really bad migraines, maybe it's like, I'd love to come drop off dinner to you a couple times a month so that you know that I'm thinking of you. What can I do to still feel connected? But I also have some things that I want to do. And normally maybe we would do those together, but you can't do that right now. And I don't want you to think that I'm trying to leave you behind, but I have some things I want to explore. Like, I'm lonely at home without you. I want to go check out this group and see if I can meet some more people who are interested in some of the hobbies I'm interested in. Right? Maybe they're sad about that, your friend, that they can't join along. And you have to sit there and say like, "Yeah, I'm sad you can't join along either," right? I want to help you get rid of these migraines so we can go do fun things together. Now, that conversation maybe was a little hard to bring up. It feels like it's rocking the boat because your friend is probably kind of sad now because they want to join along with you, right? In their mind, when you were also sitting at home doing nothing, it made them feel a little better that they weren't the only ones sitting at home miserable. There's probably going to be some uncomfortable moments. Maybe there's some growth. Maybe they tell you to go do it. Go check out those speed friending events. And then when you tell them about it, maybe they're a little sad and it feels like you backtracked, right? They told you to go and now you feel uncomfortable because it almost sounds like they wish you didn't go, right? Which might lead to more conversations. And over time, this will be a slow shift of what's normal between you. The alternative is if you go with option 1 or option 2, where we are suppressing our urges or hiding and calculating, I think that there's kind of an emotional undercurrent that builds over time, right? There's more lies to keep track of, more resentment that's building, more distance. That is all work that you are managing. But it is work that I think is kind of eroding the foundation of your friendship. I think this is just me talking. I don't have any proof of this. It's just somebody to sit with. Sometimes I do think that people, if you've been doing this type of work that's kind of eroding the foundation of your friendship for a really long time, and then let's say a year from now, your friend finds out you've been doing all these hangouts and you never told them, they might get really mad at you. And it might actually be like a blow up fight maybe. And you might come back and blame your friend. Like, well, they just can't handle that I've been doing all these things. And sometimes I think people don't see their part in this of like, hey, you chose the work of hiding everything. You had a part in this too, but I digress. I'll move on. The emotional toll with the option 3, which is navigating the changing culture of your friendship, is that there is going to be some discomfort when you bring it up, when you have that conversation that I kind of mocked up for you. But the hope would be that over time, the discomfort decreases, right? Because you're building repair skills. You're building trust that you can work through things together. Eventually, it becomes easier and easier to just bring this stuff up. And the biggest bonus, the biggest win here is that you get to be fully yourself. In the end, right? You get to go after your interests. You get to talk about your real feelings. You get to hear your friends' real feelings. You might get closer to that friend that has the migraines because now they're really telling you what it feels like. I'm speaking from firsthand experience as someone who is still navigating chronic illness. They might tell you all about how they feel like the world is passing them by and how sad that is. And they're not blaming you for that. You might get to hear this whole side of them you never would have heard if you had gone with option 1 or 2. So I think the reframe here is that you're not choosing between work and no work. You are always choosing which work you're going to do. But one kind of work keeps you stuck, and one kind of work, in my opinion, builds something more sustainable, right? We're going back and we're kind of rewriting this idea that you can have a friendship that feels good, quote unquote, or an easy friendship. The one that feels good on the surface, both people are working really, really hard underneath. It's like you're swimming and you look like you're perfect on the top, right? But underneath, your legs are just like doing that egg beater motion over and over and over again because you're trying to not fall under the surface. You're hiding things, you're sweeping things away, you're ignoring hard things. It looks really smooth from the outside, but it is exhausting underneath. Version 2, the hope would be that you are building repair skills, right? You are surviving these uncomfortable moments together. You're building trust that you can metabolize conflict, that like if something comes up, it is okay. You will work through it. It might suck for a bit, but you will get there. And as you do that more and more, you're building this bank of evidence that you can handle hard things together. And I think you have less fear and scarcity because you have proof that you will both do the work to navigate this. How are we all doing? This is a big topic. Am I tracking? I really want to hear from you all because this is like a conversation I would normally record in my own voice notes, but we're just doing it live today. We are putting unfinished work out there. So if the North Star is not to have this friendship that feels good on the surface, then what should the North Star be? I think it comes down to 3 parts. I toyed with 4, and I'll tell you the 4th one, but I don't love the 4th one. So I'm going to go with 3. Number 1 is authenticity. We are trying to fully be ourselves. We are trying to share. I don't even think it's all the parts of our lives, but I think whatever you decide to selectively share feels honest and real. Like you're allowed to still keep something close to the chest if you want to. You don't have to share it. But whatever you do share, you feel like it's the real share. And this is all in contrast to like performing a version of yourself. I think that the second North Star is growth. Growth both individually and together in your friendship relationship. Can you change and evolve? Can the friendship change and evolve? Can you share when you're learning new things about yourself, like when you're not even sure? That would be a goal. I think the third North Star is building resilience. Can you weather discomfort together? Do you have repair skills? Can you metabolize conflict? And do you trust that you'll work through hard things? The fourth one that I considered was this idea of kind of alignment on values. But as I thought through that in my own life, I realized that there are definitely friends where I don't align on every single value they have, and they don't align on all my values. But I do think that we can be authentic about our values. We can be honest if our values change and grow and evolve. And we can build resilience where we don't agree, that we can talk and listen about what each of us value. At the core, I think a number of my friends and I have very, very similar values, right? But I value, honestly, direct, open conversation way more than maybe some of my friends do. I could see that. I think I value pushing the boundaries and being bold a little bit more than some of my friends do. I don't think we necessarily have to be aligned on all of our values, but the places where I push them, the places where I make them a little uncomfortable, they can respect me, and the places where they push me, I can respect them. That's my goal. The other thing, when I think of maybe a successful friendship, like a friendship that is aligned on these North Star, the authenticity, growth, and resilience, sometimes that friendship will feel bad, not even because either of you chose to bring up some sort of conflict or change. What do I mean by that? I have mentioned on this podcast that I have a friend who lost her husband about 7 months ago. And I think that together we have navigated authenticity, growth, and resilience beautifully. I think that unfortunately, this circumstance has brought us really, really close. It did not feel good. No part of that felt good. It was a lot of feeling bad together. It was a lot of sitting there and crying. It was a lot of sitting in sadness and watching her be at her lowest point and wishing I could fix it all and knowing that I can't and all I can do is sit there. It's a lot of her depending on me way more than she ever wanted to, and me constantly having to adjust, show up in different ways, sit in really hard stuff. And we didn't choose this, right? This is just by nature of the circumstances. But the fact that we could go through the really, really, really bad together. And I'm talking like I messaged her when I heard what happened from a family member of hers. I messaged her and I said, I'm not offended. I just need your honest answer. Do you want me to get on a plane? Like same day I got on a plane and I flew to her and I stayed with her for weeks in her house. The fact that we could do that together has completely changed our friendship, and none of that felt good at all, right? The boat was absolutely rocked. It was overturned. It was thrown to the bottom of the ocean by circumstance, not by choice, but we chose to navigate it together. I've given you a couple examples of what I think rocking the boat can actually look like, right? It can be that kind of gentle conversation. It can be life circumstances throwing you in the saddest, worst moments. It could also be a fight. It could be uncomfortable conversations. It could be looking like, yes, I want this growth, but as you go through the growth, as you tell your friend, like, yeah, I totally want you to go out and make some new friends that support you in that area of your life. You could have said that. And then as it happens, you could feel more jealousy and you could feel like you're backtracking and like, hey, we need to have another conversation about this because I am still on track to do this work, but I need to talk about it. I need to process it. I need more conversation so we can move forward, right? That's not seamless. And I have been both the one to rock the boat and I have been the one who has been told, like, hey, something you did really hurt me. Somebody who has shared something about themselves that has forced me to have to adjust. So I'm not just saying this as in like I've rocked the boat. I've also had the boat rocked on me many a time. And in those moments, what I've tried to do is be open and curious. I've tried to listen and reflect. I've tried to get really specific about like, okay, what actions do you wish I had taken, right? Not to say I'm going to do exactly what the other person says, but I want to understand like, what do they wish had happened? Am I willing to do those things? What would that look like for me to do those things? When I slip up and fall back into old patterns, let's acknowledge it. I'm sorry I did that. Let's try again. I think the sign that it's working when you're rocking the boat is that you're building repair skills, you're starting to build trust, and the fear deep down that your friendship is just this expendable thing, I think that decreases because you have all these examples of being willing to do the real work to grow together. The work that we celebrate in familial and romantic relationships. And when it's not working, I think that the under the surface work, that treading water under the surface, feels endless. Resentment builds, and you're not seeing progress or change. And you're like, okay, Alex, but when do I walk away? I think that anyone can decide at any moment not to do the work, like the real work. If that's what you want to do, is the option 3 work, the out in the open, messy work, and the other person decides not to do that, and you're forced to be like, okay, well, then the work I have to do is option 1 or 2, and I don't want to do 1 or 2, that could be a moment to walk away. If the work that they want you to do in the open, the messy work, just really doesn't align with your values, you're like, that's not me. I'm not doing that. That could be a moment to walk away, and that's okay. Not every friendship is meant to survive. But I do think that whatever above the surface work you do, the hope is that you can take some of those skills into your other relationships, which will build more of that resilience and that trust, right? You'll have less scarcity because you'll be like, okay, when conflict comes up, I feel like I can have the hard conversation. Let's close this all up. Let's bring it back. If you are somebody who has listened to some of my episodes and you're like, I can't comprehend how to get from where my friendship is now to what you are talking about, I hope this episode has made you realize that you are probably already doing work. I know I used that like friends making other friends example. There are so many other examples I could use. If you have an example where you're like, how do I get from where I am to there? Reach out. Let me know. I would love to hear what your situation is because you're probably already doing the work. The question is just like, which work actually is serving you and your friendship? Because the hard truth is, if you want friendships where you can be fully yourself, where you can grow and change and share the real stuff, you're probably going to have to rock the boat. There are probably going to be moments that are uncomfortable, but it won't be uncomfortable forever. And the hope is that on the other side, you will see that that work was worth it because it made your friendship feel closer, feel easier, feel more authentic, true to yourself. And is that work that you think is worth doing? Or do you want to keep treading water endlessly forever and ever? Because I don't think the treading water option, I don't think it'll ever stop. So with that, I would love to hear your thoughts as I just word vomited all over you with my incomplete thoughts. We will see where this goes. Maybe a year or 2 from now, I will be recording a different episode with more refined thoughts. But for now, thanks for being here and having this conversation. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Friendship IRL. I am so honored to have these conversations with you, but don't let the chat die here. Send me a voice message. I created a special website just to chat with you. You can find it at alex.chat. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle at it's Alex Alexander, or go ahead and leave a review wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to take this conversation a step further, send this episode to a friend. Tell them you found it interesting and use what we just talked about as a conversation starter the next time you and your friend hang out. No need for a teary goodbye. I'll be back with a new episode next week.